Okay, should I start?
But wait, is the coffee ready?
It should be. It's time. They must be coming. Let's check.
Let's go. Rush. We have a few people joining in for coffee and conversation. For Disability Pride Month, because it holds a deep significance in the disability community and there is a lot of effort made to make this society inclusive. We have with us 3 guests who are leaders and icons in the disability movement, starting with Dr. Meenu Bhambhani, who is the Vice President and Head of Corporate Citizenship, Global DEI at State Street. Next we have Raj Mariwala, Director Mariwala Health Initiative, with our very own Executive Director of NCPEDP, Arman Ali. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation.
So Disability Pride Month holds a very special place in my heart. The reason being that this thing started in 2003 when I first participated in the first Chicago Disability Pride Parade. They were just 8 or 10 of us wearing purple t-shirts written disabled and proud and marching away in the city, hardly anybody recognizing us. But we just felt a sense of community and sense of pride in just being around each other. And then I delved deeper into the issue of disability, which is generally perceived as a deficit. How can anybody be proud of that deficit? Because you're constantly comparing yourself with a perfect world in which you have an imperfect body. So when I looked deeper into it, I realized that disability pride is an evolution. You are not born with that pride, because when you have a disability or whenever you acquire a disability, you go through a process of first accepting it yourself. And there are years that you spend in negating your own existence, negating your own identity, because it is such an important part of your identity. And only when you accept, and that identity acceptance comes when you meet more people with disabilities. And when you meet them, you know that you are in a non-judgmental, safe space where there are so many like you, with whom you can fight, who can have arguments, you can have disagreements, and you can have conversations which they understand. The way I talk to another person with disability, the way Arman and I talk, that brings in that sense of pride. And the pride comes when you work collectively for a cause. So I think I went through that stage of negating my own identity, trying to fit in, finding that community, and gradually realizing that this community is where I want to spend the rest of my life and work for it. And that's how, after I became proud of my disability, that I started working in that space. That's how disability pride comes in. Quickly on ableism. Ableism is a system that is designed to exclude certain groups of people, because in your imagination, the world has to be designed around only that majority which walks, thinks, processes everything in a certain way, and that they think is a norm. And that is why people like us who are non-normative don't fit into that. And we have to fit into that ableist world.
Yes.
In layman's terms, I'll give you a simple example. As a person with disability, I use a shoe with an extra sole. There is no problem in this country who can fit an extra sole with aesthetics, because aesthetics is not for people with disabilities. How does it matter? They don't look good in any way. So why even make an attempt to make something aesthetic?
Sure.
And that is what ableism does to you. It eats away at you, at your dignity. And that's how systems are designed. I'll rest my case here.
So I think disability pride for me is reclaiming the narratives. I think for far too long, individual ideas around disability or seeing disability as an individual phenomenon has meant that we may not collectivize, that we may not band together to form a common identity. And disability pride is one way in which to, I think, go against that tide and have oppositional role models for ourselves, talk about shared histories and shared struggles. I think it's also very important to say at this stage that yes, the idea that bodies are normative, it's a very powerful construct, and it's so powerful that it's not defined. So when we define disability, disability is always defined because it's at the margins, but the other is not defined. And so this is also one way of saying, we are here, you can't ignore us. And then if you also look at ableism, which is what we discussed, I think ableism is not just societal attitudes, it's so deeply embedded in our institutions, in our structures. It's so deeply embedded that ableism takes place when there's a fetus in the womb that's deemed as disabled, right? And so in the backdrop of whether it's eugenics, whether it is ableism in school systems or in families, it is very important to visualize, one, what the disability experience could look like or experiences could look like, what oppressions or marginalizations one may face, but also more importantly, I think the joys of resisting together, which we don't speak of enough, and I think disability pride is somewhat perfect for that.
No, I completely agree with both Meenu and Raj. But even with the disability pride, we still judge people amongst us. There's a fine tune and fine lining of ableism in that, who is more able than the other disabled person. And it does not only mean in your functional, your functionality. It also means your social strata. Are you able to speak English? Which the place you come from? What kind of economic background your family is from? And so on, okay? And if you see yourself in the mainstream, you're more of a mainstream if you're a person with disability and you have many friends who are not disabled, and you are seeing in events and social construct of the mainstream society, then you also don't see yourself as part of the larger community on a daily basis. It's a very situational thing. Today if I have a issue to take up, I want everybody to come and support me. But tomorrow when I am trying to be somewhere else, I don't want you there. These are some of the experiences I see with people, and also maybe it's also in me sometime, maybe in all of us at some point of level, and it is also personal. And disability pride sounds nice and it's very important, it's a global thing. But if you look at a country like India, it is so inaccessible. It is so difficult for you to survive on a day-to-day basis. Your freedom to move from one place to another. Your ability to express your point of view. Your simple choice of selecting the kind of tea you want to have, right? That if you ask too many decision making that this pride. If I want to wear this purple today, it's because I have organized. But if I want to tell, if I'm dependent on somebody, can you get me a purple t-shirt? Then person will say, why do you have to wear purple? It does look like a book. And you have to explain your existence and your choices so many times that the pride gets diluted. And this term, you keep listening in many conversations. And when you go for an award, or if you are a guest somewhere and there's an announcement, and they'll say he has overcome his disability. When who overcomes disability, even somebody who's not disabled is not able to overcome certain challenges he or she has in terms of your functionality, in terms of your thought process, in terms of so many other issues like could be medical or your behavioral and so on. And people with disability, I think the challenge is that the gatekeeping is so much. The gatekeeping is so much that it keeps you away from the pride part of it. First you prove that you're a person. And prove it through, again, multiple barriers and gatekeeping within the family and then outside in the certification, and then you get it. And then you have to prove that despite your disability, you are able to do a task, which is your fundamental right, like getting education, primary school education. Getting, to go to a restaurant, then where is the pride in all that? And then if you see yourself fighting for a cause, the resistance, when you want to resist all this, and then you lack that unity in people. Then you also isolate yourself. The more able bodies are on the other side. It will go on and on. I don't want to delve so deep. but it's always a man like me on a wheelchair who's seen talking about all these things. Where do you see women with disability in that? Right in the, if you want to talk about a resistance movement or representation of certain things. Yeah, at all, I'm not talking about a city level itself, even in rural, smaller towns and things. So getting to the disability pride, I think India is a great country, we're a great nation, and what is very exciting that in present times, we are able to hold this conversation like this. A lot of young people at disability in India were able to articulate their thoughts, they are able to fight their own battles. And that this is not like an urban city phenomenon. It's like smaller towns. Meenu was talking about somebody yesterday, Dr. Bhambhani. Yeah, so I have not heard about it. Although you hear so many other people who are from Rajasthan and Jaipur, but the kind of story she shared with me yesterday. So again, people don't associate with such people, because then you become a lone warrior. And then your pride is to yourself and you kind of, and I've been a little bit of a devil's advocate, but I have my kind of.
I think you have raised a very important point of intersections.
Sure.
The class, caste, your economic status, and your disability. So where you are pegged in all those hierarchies also determines where you are in the hierarchy of that ableist world. Whether you fit in or you don't fit in, or to what extent you fit in. The recent example, like I remember just few days back, there was this couple who was denied adoption of a child. Now there are so many other people with disabilities who have adopted children through the same system, but this couple was denied. Why? If one delves deeper, obviously the social strata where they came from was something the ableist world decided that they cannot. But if you have a pedigree of a certain kind of education and economic status, then you can be parents even if you have a disability. But if you come from a certain class, somebody has decided that you can't.
So on the other hand, there is a push for adoption of children with disability in this ACF system.
Correct.
And there are a lot of people who are from overseas that come to India to adopt such children who have disability and they're abandoned by their parents because they found out there's some deformity in the child right at the infant stage. So both ways, you see. So how we look at disability and where is the pride? And if disabled people don't reclaim their pride, and if they're not comfortable in their own skin, I think this struggle will continue, and we will only have this in these conversations that we want for social media and creating awareness, and it's not go beyond that. And we must say this on the record, because we are aware of the situation. And this idea of this having conversations that we need to go beyond yourself, beyond your comfort zone, asking those questions, And there are many other marginalized groups, and most of them wear it on like a badge on their arm. For us, we say, I keep citing this example that somebody from Pune got in touch with me on LinkedIn that, sir, I'm looking for an internship, I've done my BCom. I have a locomotor disability, but because of my disability, I've not been given this internship anywhere. Yeah. And then I said, okay, let's speak on the phone. And she said, sir, I have a problem with my legs, but I can manage, I can walk. So if you get me some where to intern or do an apprenticeship, I will be grateful. Who says that? Okay, I have a problem, but I'll manage. But I have a locomotor disability, but I can walk. Look, will you say that I am a woman, but you can treat me like a man?
Often in the media, we're seeing that persons with disability are more or less shown as an inspiration to others in how they were able to overcome their disability. However, beyond their achievements, it is never recognized that there are certain diversities within the disability community as well. And not everyone has had the same privilege of achieving the great things in their lives. So this is something that I wanted to understand, and I would like to start with you, Raj. How do you think the varying levels of privilege within the disability community can be addressed, and what role can media play in shifting those narratives, making disability look more glamorous, rather than focusing on the realities, the factual realities of persons with disability?
So I think I kind of already touched on the intersections, and I think these are important questions for all movements to answer, disability movements to answer in terms of inclusion, and of course other types of movements to be accountable to those people who are disabled within their movements, right? So that's one. I think in terms of looking at representation in media, and media is just like a reflection of any other institution that has that has ableism inbuilt. And I'll start off with the structure of media itself. I mean, how many camera persons are disabled, how many directors are disabled, right? So that's one level. In terms of depiction, of course, I think Arman brought it up. How many disabled women are we hearing from? How many disabled women get pitched as leaders? And similarly, so I mean, we can look at it along the lines of gender, and by gender, I just don't mean binary gender, but I also mean trans folk. We can look at along the lines of caste. We can also look at it along the lines of location. I mean, we have Arman sitting here, but how many people do we hear from the Northeast, right? Is it only people from Delhi and Bombay, disabled people from Delhi and Bombay that matter, right? Or what happens?
Bangalore.
And Bangalore, right?
How can we ignore Bangalore sitting here?
Yeah, are we going to, I mean, what about persons with disabilities who live in villages? What about persons with disabilities who maybe teach in schools? Where are disabled people represented in media who are not necessarily talking about their own disability, talking about going about life, right? I mean, these are very basic things. We haven't even reached those.
But I think, I agree with whatever is said, but I'm also alright by, if media is portraying people with disability as inspiration. But only thing is also pay, yeah. Pay these people who you are showing as, inspiration. Pay them 50-60 lakh rupees for advertisement. I'm alright. I know of the Indian wheelchair cricket team captain. The other day he was with somebody who was a friend asking for money. For sponsorship for the team to practice somewhere. Is this the plight of Indian cricket team? I mean, forget about the Indian cricket team. I mean, if you look at the Maharashtra Ranji team or Karnataka Ranji, they're all having government jobs. And they will be playing in IPL, they will be doing other things and so on. When you are not able to provide equal playing field for people with disability, you look them as inspiration and be apologetic and pay more money. Pay them the cost of disability. That, I'm sorry, you're not able to go to the stadium, you're able to practice, but here is some money. At least you can do something at your own convenience. Please come and talk about your issues on media and we will pay you for that. And not just come and give you a trophy and a bouquet and hello sir, we'll give you a taxi, pick up and drop, and beyond that. I have friends who are international athletes and people who have got medals in international events. People refuse to pay them. If they're invited to any event to speak, to inaugurate Qatar ribbon. If you invite an Indian cricket team member or the badminton or any other athlete, you will pay through your nose. There's a manager in between you and the client. But the same thing doesn't happen when it comes to disabled people. So, ठीक है, we are specially able, differently able. I'm all right with all that, but please pay. Give us dar ke aage jeet hai martin due. Disabled person doing it. Pay the money, and money can be an answer to a lot of means of life. Yes.
Not just that, I completely agree with you, but that's why the faces that we see representing disability have multiple privileges so that they can afford to take that pay hit in order to go and speak. That's why we don't have diverse voices.
Also, I think there has been a change in the depiction of people with disabilities, how it was in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s to how it is now, where especially if you take films, it's all about people with disabilities and their achievements, their struggles, and some of the representation has also touched upon the systemic barriers that they have faced. So I think it is changing, and I think it's important in the Disability Pride Month to take a pause and also accept that there has been some progress.
Of course. I mean, there's nothing taking away that
I mean,
progress.
yesterday there was a mainstream opinion article in Mint on disability as a diversity in the workplace. And I had never seen that. I have been subscribing to Mint forever, but I had never seen an article by a business columnist on diversity and disability in the workplace. So I think it is changing. But I think what is not changing is that how disabled people are going about their lives normally. That depiction is still not
The
there.
struggles.
Yeah. That they have families, that they can be parents, that they can be lovers, they can be girlfriends, boyfriends, they can have relationships.
Criminals also.
Yes. And that they also need access.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if you read, it was in the newspaper and I put it on also my social media, that a disabled man was murdered by 3 other disabled persons. So one, that crime against women, there is data, but crime against people with disabilities, no data being recorded at the national crime data, the NCRP, whatever it is. So there's one is that crime assault, and the other thing, the right to defense. The person who needs to get access to justice or defend themselves for anything. So the entirety, like Meenu said, you just cannot have one goody feeling about everything.
Absolutely. Although in this particular point, I must say that for persons living with mental illness, more often than not, criminal behavior is always attributed to you're mad, you're mentally ill. And so that link for persons with invisible disability is quite a, I think, fractured one, and the legacy of that very much continues in our systems because, of course, the lunacy codes of the country were very connected to incarceration. But other than that, yes, it's just part of normal life. You can't lionize and valorize because in the end we are human.
Yeah. So next thing we wanted to talk about universal accessibility, and like we've seen a lot of times, it is merely seen as a commendable practice at a lot of workplaces, offices, institutions, and not something which is mandatory, which is a fundamental right of a human being human. What is your view on that? I will start with you, Arman, because okay, I'll start with Dr. Meenu. Where are we as India in achieving universal accessibility, especially in businesses and of course as society as whole?
In my experience, disability from a legal aspect is treated in a very weak way. You compare the two laws, RPWD Act 2016 and you see the Companies Act 2014. When the 2% mandate came, every company had to spend 2%, right? And it was tracked, it was monitored, there were penalties, business controller was made responsible for it. So you see the compliance, and it has been going up and up and up because companies are scared that if they do not comply, their business controller could be behind bars or there could be penalties. What is the penalty for violating the clauses of RPWD Act? Who is monitoring it? People can get away very easily. So why will I need to invest my energies into something which nobody is bothered? And it is inconvenient for me to create universal access. And the standards are guidelines. Standards are not mandatory still. The harmonized guidelines. It still says guidelines. Nobody is checking it. And I think we as a nation operate in an environment where there are strict mandates and only then we comply.
Like seat belts, wear it because there's a challan. Otherwise, nobody wears it for safety. I will take Meenu's point to another thing. This one is compliance when you look at businesses. Another thing I would want to say that whatever is your business, whatever is your product or service, is it accessible for people with disability or not? So if you're looking your business from a business, from accessibility and look at people with disability and their families as client, customers' point of view, then you don't have to do or reinvent inclusion of people with disability in the workforce per se, because you will be conscious, like if you run a coffee shop, for example, so you have it accessible for people with disability to come have coffee, use your area, washroom, everything. That means if you have an employee with disability, it's automatic. Okay, so I keep saying this about myself, that I come from a large family. We are 6 brothers. I have 8 nieces and nephews. My sister-in-laws, my mother, drivers. So whenever the family goes out for a movie or eating out, we only go to a place where it is accessible for me. So there's a fat bill of 30 to 40,000 rupees each time we go out. It's business that we give to that place, and it's because there's one person with disability in the family. And it likewise in everything. Which airlines you do, which hotel you stay, where you eat, where you go for a haircut, where you want to buy your clothes. It's like that. So one is compliance, that you do compliance. So products and services. If you look at education. If you make education accessible to people with disability, the business, education is more private than government now. Wherever you want to do, you go to private universities, you go to private schools and so on. Are they looking at it from a business model? Are they looking at education people with disability despite having national education policy, the RPWDI, the right to education, but it is falling through the crack. It's something which is a fundamental right, and if you don't have education, then these people will not be able to earn the kind of money they want to earn and then be part of your customer base. So compliance is one, and also I was speaking in one of the national event of one of the business confederations, which I'm sure you are part of. And they talked about equal opportunity policy, and we had people from government, and I said so much of pleading to enforce and the idea of having an equal opportunity policy in private sector. I said, did we do this kind of pleading for GST? And the entire room was quiet. I said, you fall in line. You don't fall in line, you can't do business. So just reiterating what Meenu is saying, but again, that's one way of it. But there is a need to incentivize businesses. Incentivize any institutions who are trying to make it inclusive, give them tax benefit, like you promote SEZs, like you promote subsidiary to certain businesses which you want to promote. Look at the startup ecosystem, look at the EVs which is coming up, look at the solar thing that you want to promote. There is so much of incentive government is giving up, so the people also get encouraged. But when it comes to disability, it is being shown that it's for a cause, you must do, it's good for everyone. And it doesn't you'll get something. Yeah.
Disability inclusion is not embedded into everything that we do. It is seen as separate.
Yes.
And that is why it becomes such a task for everyone, that where all do I include? Because it's not by design at all. I mean, I couldn't agree more. For me, I believe that accessibility is actually a fundamental human right. It's non-negotiable, it's not a frill, it's not optional, and I mean, people have to move beyond the idea that it's compliance. Sorry, it's not compliance. In fact, if you don't have accessibility, it is a systems failure. Whether you look at anything in international development, universal healthcare, how do you get it without disability access? Universal education, how are you going to get it without disability access? Universal ID. It's not universal because you haven't figured out how to make it okay for disabled people to get that thumbprint or biometrics on Aadhaar. Sorry, it's a systems failure. You have to design accessibility into whatever you're building from the start, and nothing less actually. That there should be actually no option, because otherwise you're going to continue to fail. And just to actually take this a little forward, if we look at climate change, what climate change is doing is actually creating mass disabling events all over the place, and we're going to have to face it that until and unless we adapt and make accessibility focal, we are going to keep on failing more and more and more people.
But I also want to say that accessibility is not a question of just physical barriers. The barriers are multiple, and even if we take in health systems, a deaf person going to a therapist, do they have the agency and dignity to be able to communicate with their therapist without family member being the role? As basic as that. Or do they have accessibility to transport?
Just to add, Raj, I want you to respond to that. Just take this same scenario 2 notches down. I mean, I will not even talk about Raipur in Indore or
correct.
I will just take 2 notches down. Go to a smaller town, like somewhere in UP or somewhere in Bihar or in Northeast or any state for pandemic. From we are in Delhi right now. You drive 1 hour from here. You'll not find basic infrastructure in place and working. Even the ramp that we crib about will not exist. Because sitting here, we say, what kind of ramp are you wearing? This is like a rocket launcher. And you don't have these luxuries to stay. So for, with being a, Pride Month or disability, one of the things that it's a responsibility of people like me and all of us here to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Very important that we may be talking about stuff which sounds very urbanized and looks modern in so to speak, but we must acknowledge all our comrades and brothers and sisters and friends who don't have this this privilege of expressing their own self, just even something very basic. So the all the scheme of things is just cannot be certain people who are able to ask questions. What are those who are not able to kind of even come out of their rooms, not able to speak with their own family members? There are issues, and it's so great, so diverse and so deep. These issues are. Plus 2 decades of my work in the disability sector, and so I'm living with a disability myself. I think we must be honest about all this, and in each our conversations, what we do and what we say, there are many things beyond that, and maybe I can speak on behalf of both of you. Maybe we are not able to address those points, and maybe we are not exposed to many of those issues which exist in a very layered scenarios where maybe we're not able to understand the kind of issues also people have beyond your basic fundamental rights and requirement, right to education, employment, and health, and so on. But there are many other things, families, and so.
I completely agree with you. And just to take an example, when it comes to persons with psychosocial disabilities and families, very basic right to liberty. People are shackled, people are, kept away in their homes, and even that is not there. Whether it is 1 hour away from Delhi or whether it is in a chota village in Tamil Nadu, right? This basic right to liberty and dignity. And that is then really part of access as well, because PHCs, our health systems, they are not geared to persons with psychosocial disabilities. In fact, persons with psychosocial disabilities die 15 years earlier than the general population of physical illnesses, because they go unchecked, because everything about that person is then their mental illness and nothing else.
Yes, in this, I'm a great fan of Meenu. She really looks after our health, and being very conscious of it from last 4 decades at least. She is aware of the adversity, and she is aware that if something, God forbid, happens to her health, there's nothing we should take place. Yesterday she was citing the example of our assistive device she was using and why. Simple things people have not answered for. If I have a pain in my leg, people will only give me painkiller. There is no rehabilitation for people with disability.
See, the thing is, like 2 days back, I heard somebody very senior saying that I don't even consider people with locomotor disability or those using wheelchairs as disabled. And I'm like, because you don't have my lived experience. What I go through. I come here, you look at me wearing nice clothes, speaking in English, and you think my life is hunky-dory, and disability is not a part of me at all. But every single decision of my life is revolved around disability. Disability is such an integral part of me. And that is where this pride is hit, is shattered, is questioned. Because you don't understand what my disability is or how I go about my daily life, the struggles that I have, which side of the bed I sleep, how do I take a shower, how do I brush my teeth, the basics. Everything is revolved around disability. How do I plan my evening so that I'm on time in the morning to go anywhere? You will take 2 minutes to do the same task. I will take 20-30 minutes. You are not going to give me that concession of 20-30 minutes. You will label me as somebody who's coming in late without really delving into the issue that how my disability impacted these decisions. So disability pride in that sense, I feel sometimes is though in a public forum I will say I'm proud of my disability, but there are times I'm not proud of my disability because the ableist world is judging me. It is denying my identity as a person with disability because it is putting me into hierarchies or certain brackets or certain frameworks in which I don't fit. So,
just to put it on record against DBA, तो 3 of us are speaking in English, हमको हिंदी भी आता है, हिंदी भी बोलते हैं और अगला कन्वर्सेशन हम हिंदी में जरूर करेंगे. सही है?
या तो मराठी, गुजराती, not हिंदी.
इधर बोल सकते मराठी, गुजराती ऐसा नहीं.
मैं हिंदी
बोल सकते हो. The Meenu की बात से मुझे I just remembered, my childhood friend, somebody I don't have a memory that how did we become friends, is also at really big. When I dropped out of school, and the days I was very low and sad, and used to cross in front of my house while he was going to school. I used to tell him as much as would stay with me, and he used to stay with me and go back to his house after the school time was over. It took 30 years for me to go to his house because now that he has bought a flat, he has a lift, and I could go and he took me there. So just imagine, some of the best of my friend, he comes to my house even if I'm at home in Guwahati, when I was twice used to meet, it was always practice, but always some place in public. Is it something which you can digest? It is a very normal social thing. Like anybody who's friends go to each other's house, his family. But every time he used to get food from his house to my house, that is my mother said to you, it's not even making me realize that because of my disability, I'm not even to go there.
That is how we think are invisible.
That's what. And I'm somebody who to do. I'm articulating my thoughts. I have means to move around, but there are limitations.
Oh, sure.
So there are many of us who don't even have these privileges. That having a friend who kind of stood by you throughout your life, all your struggles, and you had somebody to talk and share about all these things.
You remember Arman in Purple Fest?
Yeah.
That when I asked, what do you understand by social inclusion? And there was this lady among the participants, and she shared the example of her daughter. And she says she has studied in a mainstream school at a mainstream college. She just graduated. She doesn't have any friends. She has visual disability, and all her friends think that she's a burden, so they avoid her, because if they are friends with her, they have to take on that burden of accommodating her needs.
And that lady recorded all sessions so that she wanted to go and show it to her daughter, that making her feel that she was part of this.
Yeah, and that is where I feel that the school pride, when you have that community. She said she had never seen people with disabilities in her life, and that is why she was so irritable. She is having anxiety issues and mental health issues because she's so lonely. And it's this community that gives you that pride.
Really request you all to share something that the audience who will be watching this interview take out of the conversation.
I think it's important to ask questions. So if you are a person with disability, ask. Seek. Make yourself visible. It takes time. Connect with other people with disabilities so that you are in that safe space where you get the courage and eventually reach the stage of pride.
I think this conversation for me drives home something I really believe in, that the strength and power of community and community organizing is what we all need at a personal level, to keep us feeling, not feeling alienation, feeling camaraderie at a more social level, be it in our neighborhoods, dealing with our families, dealing in workplaces, at more institutional levels, and then further at a systemic level. Community and getting together community is what will help us transform things.
No, I will just say what I keep saying, that make it impossible for people to ignore disability. Viklang Ekta Jindabad. Thank you.
Thank you.